The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows of the royal chapel, casting pools of amber and crimson light across the ancient stone floor. King Aldrich stood at the altar, his shoulders rigid beneath the weight of his ceremonial armor. The chapel was filled with nobles and courtiers, their whispers echoing like the rustling of autumn leaves. Aldrich had never imagined his wedding day would feel like this. Cold, dutiful, empty. He was the Alpha King, the most powerful werewolf in the Seven Kingdoms. He had led armies into battle. He had negotiated treaties that brought peace to warring nations. He had done everything a king should do, everything except choose his own bride. The marriage had been arranged when he was still a boy, a political alliance between his kingdom and the neighboring realm of Silvermere. For 20 years the contract had hung over his head like a shadow. And now, finally, the day had come. Aldrich had never met his bride, Princess Alara of Silvermere. He knew only what the rumors told him, and the rumors were not kind. They said she was plain, unremarkable. Some whispered she was cursed with a face that would make flowers wilt. Others claimed she was so shy that she hadn't left her tower in years. The portrait sent by her father showed only a heavily veiled figure, and every request to meet before the wedding had been politely but firmly declined. The princess prefers to maintain tradition, her father's letters had said. She will reveal herself only to her husband on their wedding day. Aldrich had tried to be philosophical about it. Beauty faded. What mattered was duty, alliance, and the strength of their kingdoms.
He would be kind to her.
He would treat her with respect, but love was a luxury kings could not afford. The heavy doors of the chapel groaned open, and a hush fell over the assembled crowd. The bride appeared at the entrance, a ghostly figure in layers of white silk and lace. Her veil was thick, opaque, covering her from head to waist. It rippled slightly as she walked, as if moved by a wind that touched nothing else in the chapel. Aldrich watched her approach. Her steps were slow, measured. Her head was bowed. 2 attendants walked beside her, supporting her elbows as if she might collapse at any moment. He felt a pang of sympathy. She must be terrified, marrying a stranger, a king, an alpha wolf whose reputation on the battlefield was fierce and unforgiving. As she drew closer, he noticed something. Despite the heavy veil, despite the way she seemed to shrink into herself, there was something about the way she moved. A natural grace, an elegance that no amount of fear could completely hide. The attendants brought her to stand beside him. Through the veil, he could see nothing of her face, just a pale shadow. The scent that reached him was surprising, though. Not perfume or oils, but something wilder, like moonlight on water, like wind through pine forests. His wolf stirred within him, curious. The ceremony began. The ancient words were spoken in the old tongue, binding them together before the gods and the pack. Aldrich spoke his vows clearly, his voice carrying through the chapel. When it was her turn, Alara's voice was so soft he had to strain to hear it. "I accept this bond," she whispered. "From this day until my last day." There was something in her voice. A sadness, yes, but also something else. Something that made his chest tighten in an unfamiliar way. Finally, the priest raised his hands. "By the power vested in me by the moon goddess herself, I declare you husband and wife. Let the Alpha King lift the veil and seal this union with a kiss." This was the moment Aldrich had been dreading. He had prepared himself to show no reaction, no matter what he saw. A king must have perfect control. He would smile. He would be gentle. He would not let her see any disappointment in his eyes. He reached for the edge of the veil, his fingers brushing against the delicate lace. He could feel the eyes of hundreds upon him. The weight of expectation, the hunger for gossip. He lifted the veil slowly, his heart beating with steady purpose, and then he stopped breathing. The woman before him was not what he had expected. Not even close. She was beautiful, not in the common way. Not in the simple prettiness of court ladies with their painted faces and practiced smiles. She was beautiful in the way that wild things are beautiful. Her face was heart-shaped, with high cheekbones and a delicate jaw. Her skin was pale, almost luminous in the colored light from the windows. Her lips were full and naturally pink, pressed together nervously. But it was her eyes that undid him. They were silver, true silver, like moonlight made solid, large and expressive, framed by long dark lashes. And in those eyes he saw fear, yes, but also intelligence, strength, a fierce spirit that she was clearly trying very hard to suppress. She was not just beautiful. She was magnificent. For a long moment, Aldrich simply stared. His practiced composure crumbled. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew people were watching, waiting. But he couldn't look away from her. Ilara's eyes widened at his reaction. She seemed to brace herself, her shoulders tensing as if expecting a blow. A faint color rose in her cheeks. "Your Majesty," she whispered so quietly only he could hear. "Please, the kiss. Let us finish this." There was resignation in her voice, as if this were an ordeal to be endured. And suddenly Aldrich understood. She thought his shock was something else. She thought she had somehow disappointed him. The realization cut through his days like a blade. "Forgive me," he said, his voice rough. "You are not what I expected." He saw the hurt flash across her face, saw her eyes drop to the floor, and before she could misunderstand further, before he could let this moment slip away, he stepped closer. He cupped her face gently in his hands, tilting her chin up until those silver eyes met his again. "I expected duty," he said softly. "I expected obligation. I expected to resign myself to a loveless match for the sake of my kingdom." He leaned closer, his thumb brushing her cheek. "I did not expect you." And then he kissed her. It was meant to be ceremonial, a brief touch of lips to seal their vows. But the moment their mouths met, something shifted. Something fundamental and irrevocable. The bond between them, the mate bond that some wolves felt and others never knew, flared to life like a spark catching dry tinder. Aldrich felt it surge through him. Recognition. Completion. The absolute certainty that this woman, this mysterious princess he had resigned himself to marrying out of duty, was his true mate. When he pulled back, he saw the same shock reflected in her eyes. She had felt it too. The chapel erupted in applause, breaking the spell. Aldrich became aware again of where they were, of the hundreds of people watching. But he kept his hand on Ilara's waist as they turned to face the crowd, and he felt her lean into him just slightly. The feast that followed was a blur. Aldrich sat beside his new wife at the high table, acutely aware of every small movement she made. She ate little, her hands trembling slightly as she raised her cup. He wanted to speak with her, to ask her 1,000 questions, but protocol demanded his attention elsewhere. Lords and ladies came to offer their congratulations, and he had to greet them all with proper courtesy. But every few moments, his eyes would drift back to Ilara, and sometimes he would catch her looking at him too, those silver eyes bright with confusion and something that might have been hope. Finally, as the moon rose high and the feast began to wind down, Aldrich leaned close to her. "Walk with me," he said. "Please." She hesitated, then nodded. He led her out of the great hall, through corridors lit by torches, until they reached the castle gardens. The night air was cool and clean, scented with jasmine and roses. The sounds of the feast faded behind them. They walked in silence for a while, following a path between flowering bushes. Finally, Aldrich stopped beside a fountain, its water catching moonlight like liquid silver. "I need to understand something," he said, turning to face her. "The rumors about you, the veils, the refusal to meet. None of it makes sense. You are," he gestured helplessly. "You must know you're beautiful." Ilara looked down at the water, her expression troubled. "It was my father's idea," she said quietly. "He thought if you met me before the wedding, you might want me for the wrong reasons. He wanted you to commit to the marriage, to the alliance before you saw me. He wanted to ensure that this union was built on something more than desire. And the rumors? We didn't start them, but we didn't correct them either." She smiled sadly. "My father thought a reputation for plainness would protect me, keep me safe from those who might seek to use me for my face rather than my value as a person, as a princess." Aldrich felt a surge of respect for her father's cunning, even as he resented the deception. "Did it work?" he asked. Do you feel what I feel?" She looked up at him then, and in her eyes he saw the answer before she spoke it. "The mate bond," she whispered. "Yes, I felt it the moment you kissed me." He reached for her hand, and she let him take it. "I came to this wedding expecting nothing," he said, "prepared to do my duty with no joy in it. But now," he lifted her hand to his lips, "now I find I have been given a gift beyond measure. Not just a beautiful bride, though you are that, but my true mate, my equal, my partner." Tears glistened in her silver eyes. "I was so afraid," she admitted. "Afraid you would be cruel, Afraid you would see me as just another piece on a political chessboard. I've been terrified for weeks. No more, Aldrich said firmly. He pulled her closer until they stood together beside the fountain, the moon bright above them. I cannot promise perfection. I am a king, and that means my time will not always be my own. But I can promise you this. I will see you, the real you. I will value your mind as much as your beauty, and I will spend every day earning the gift of your partnership. Ilara smiled then, a true smile that transformed her face from beautiful to radiant. Then I think, she said softly, we may have gotten very lucky in this arranged marriage. Aldrich laughed, the sound surprising him with its genuine warmth. I think you may be right. He kissed her again there in the moonlit garden, and this time it was not for ceremony or duty or the watching eyes of a crowd. It was just for them, two strangers who had expected nothing and found everything. Above them the moon shone bright and full, and somewhere in the distance a wolf howled its approval. The Alpha King had found his queen, and she was perfect.